LinkSource works in a variety of industries such as public utilities, energy, healthcare, and law enforcement. How can the concept of mobile justice impact the cost of telecom to an organization? Could you share with us what are some of the pitfalls when a law enforcement agency is managing multiple devices such as cell phones and tablets?
You know, it all comes back down to some privacy issues, security, trying to manage a significant amount of devices and not having the right tools in place is going to, put you back in that situation when, you're not really taking advantage of any sort of optimization, and you're not driving any ROI. So a lot of the times you want to put yourself in a position, you have the right tools in place to have, avoid unnecessary costs. So, those are very typical challenges we see even in the enterprise space.
And I would also add in that I've had chief of police in large departments tell me, I don't have the money to issue an officer a cell phone, an iPad, or a tablet, plus all the security devices that go with it, the two-factor authentication tokens, all of that. So cost, again, is a big factor when you're talking mobile and mobile justice and multiple devices. And that's where I think LinkSource comes into play with being able to find those hidden costs, bring out the waste, and be able to drive those costs down so that you can afford the devices that you need to do your job.
That's actually a really good point, and I'd like to elaborate a little bit as it relates to going back a little bit to the audit and optimization and inventory, which is part of the 6 steps. We have a very unique proprietary way that we go about doing auditing, and if we just look at wireless services, you have to have a specific skill set to not only create some optimization, but create some solutions going forward and manage those solutions going forward. If you look at what we've done over the last couple of years as a company in the audit space alone and optimization, we've saved customers over $1.6 billion on paper. So that's a fairly significant number to create some savings for customers.
I do have some questions around that number, and I want to come back to it. I want to, before we jump off this topic of the telecom life cycle, I think sometimes there's a misunderstanding of what that is. You'll have either an organization is growing and they need lots of help building up, or they're established. But what LinkSource brings to the table is you have legal people, you have engineers, you have people that understand different legalities. Doing business in the Commonwealth of Virginia is very different than the state of California. Texas is different than Iowa. We understand these things. Could you comment and share with us a success story where you all have been able to come in and deal with a large organization, in a particular vertical, where you've been able to help them manage this process with your team, like I said, of from technical procurement, some of the legalities with that? Please comment on that.
Yeah, we see it both in companies that are growing and also companies that are downsizing. They have virtually the same needs. Where we've done a really, really good job, in my opinion, is we've been able to work with procurement teams as a strong team member. But because of our technical background, and we help in the entire process of designing of networks, we're able to truly understand what's going on the technical side and help bridge that gap between procurement and the IT side. That has proven to be very, very successful over the years.
Before you get to that piece of it, where the engineers are coming in and understanding their growth, we're looking, like you said, we talked a little bit about how telecom really is the next phase with security. How do you all begin to go in? The term is independent validation and verification, or benchmark. How do you all go in and begin to do that process?
Well, the first thing that we do is we'll bring in our proprietary benchmarking services. And what that allows customers to do simply is, if we look at a customer's spend, and let's say it's $5 million a month, with our benchmarking, we've been able to come in and be within 1% of future negotiated contracts. And your next question is probably going to give me some clarification, or give me some clarification. What does that mean? And what that means is, when we've gone and negotiated those contracts based on what we discovered that was within that $5 million in spend, that perhaps we've given them some side-by-side comparisons and said you should be spending $3.5 million, for example. Well, we would go to our next stage, one of our next steps, and begin the process of negotiating the contracts. And when we were finished negotiating the contracts, we were within 1% of the actual rates that we did in the benchmarking. So it really allowed a lot of our customers to be able to budget quickly and efficiently in the beginning part of the process before we even dove into any negotiations or future enhancements.
Wow, that is, I mean, I'm thinking just in terms of with any organization out there, if you're, and typically, you know, I think there's sometimes an assumption, oh, I'll just switch carriers and I'll get the new latest and greatest. But when people are looking at their spend and what they're doing, I mean, you're able to get into 1%. And typically, just for everyone listening, we're giving the example of a company spending out $5 million a month. Within that 1%, what I don't think we made clear is usually what you're able to come in and negotiate is significantly far less than what they were spending to begin with. So, you know, in this case, you know, correct me on this, but you know, if the math is, I'm spending $5 million a month, you all would come in and say, hey, you could probably be at $3.5 million a month, and you will negotiate in getting them within 1% of that.
Yes, and really, you know, at the end of the day, we don't go into our customers and say, hey, you know, let's change out your network, your primary network, from this carrier to this carrier. Right. That happens periodically.
Well, there's a big assumption of that. I just switch in.
Yeah,
you don't need to switch carriers.
No, it's not the approach really. At the end of the day, what we're trying to do is create some efficiencies and better understand our customer strategy. Where do you want to be for the next few years? And are you in a place to get there today based on, you know, what you have in place? So a lot of times what we're doing is we're talking to them about other technologies that could be coupled with their existing network, get their pricing in line, get their products and services in line, and then go ahead and actually drive down some additional costs because we're creating some optimization within the network. And there are several solutions out there now that actually allow that to happen for us.